All right. So we will be getting started in just a minute or two. I will welcome you as you come in. So I want to say welcome to Anita, welcome Carmela, welcome Henry, welcome Jacqueline, welcome Joy with an I and Joy with a Y, welcome Karen, welcome Pamela, welcome Nathan, welcome Priscilla, welcome Ruth. Thank you all for being here. Welcome David, welcome Hannah, welcome Henry. We will be getting started in just a second. So we're just giving you all time to arrive, to get settled, to find a comfortable seat, and then we'll start the show. I do want to thank you all for being here. And I'll keep on with my welcoming train. Welcome, David. Welcome, Sheil. Welcome, Tangi. Welcome, Kathleen.
Hey, Adele, I know that
Yes.
we usually say welcome to everybody, but since Mr. Dave put his in the chat, I am interested in seeing, and knowing where people are coming from. So please feel free to put your name and your state location or where you are in the chat, because it seems very interesting.
Absolutely. Please do.
Maybe we could even give people geography trivia. Or okay, here's a trivia question I ask all of my students. What is the most eastern state in the United States?
No
Googling. I saw your eyes going there. What is the most eastern state in the United States?
While you all Google that, I'm going to keep welcoming folks in.
Yes.
And so we've got Dave from Staunton, Virginia, Sheil from Wilmington, North Carolina, Elaine from Columbia, South Carolina, Pamela is joining us from West Columbia, Henry joining us from South Carolina, Anita's joining us from Lumberton, North Carolina, Amy is here from Polly Island in South Carolina, Elaine's here from Maine, Carolina. Ooh, and it looks like Pamela is answering Maine. Is that right?
Nope.
It's not right. Keep guessing, friends. Kathleen is calling from upstate South Carolina. David is here from Massachusetts. Or is that what he's guessing? I'm not sure.
Guessing, yeah.
Okay. And then Joy is calling in from Decatur, Joy with a Y. And Tangi is from Fairfield County. And she wants to say, welcome, Nico, and thanks for having her. Nathan's with Washington, calling in for Washington, D.C. So thank you all for joining us. I'm so grateful that you're here. And we're going to go ahead and get started because we got plenty of stuff to cover. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Just one moment. All right. Well, like I said, welcome everybody, and thank you for joining us tonight for our May Day Virtual Community Forum Biomass Series. Tonight, we'll be talking about environmental racism and climate justice. And like I said, we are so grateful that you are spending this time with us. This series has been such a huge success that we are keeping it going through the rest of the month. So I invite you all to check out our Justice in June Connecting Impacted Communities event page to learn more. We'll continue gathering in this space most Thursday nights at 6 p.m. Central and 7 p.m. Eastern. We'll keep the conversation going with environmental justice leaders, climate activists, and community members who are eager to share their personal stories with you. Hear from those on the ground fighting back against biomass, learn about our regional network of partners pushing for policy change, and together we'll reimagine what a healthy, prosperous economy looks like through land conservation. I will drop a link in the chat where you can learn more and register as soon as I'm done with my presentation. And as always, if you learned something new today, if you feel moved today, I invite you to please share our recording and event opportunities with others. We are recording the session and we plan to share the recording with all registrants. We will make space for questions and answers at the end of the session. The Q&A is open, so if you have any questions for our hosts or panelists at any time, please drop them in the Q&A. And I will do my best to answer any pressing questions in real time and hold some questions for the Q&A session. The chat, as you probably all noticed, is only visible to hosts and panelists for security reasons, but please do message us that way if you'd like to connect, and we love seeing where you're from, so please do drop that in there. My name is Adele Alamo. I'm the digital organizer for Dogwood Alliance. My pronouns are she, hers, and Dogwood Alliance is a 501c3 nonprofit organization. For over 25 years, Dogwood Alliance has fought threats to our forests and frontline communities. We promote forest protection as the best solution to climate change. We partner with communities across the southern US to develop economic solutions that work with and for our forests. Our mission is to advance environmental justice and climate action by mobilizing diverse voices to protect southern forests and communities from industrial logging. We work in 14 states across the Southeast, and our headquarters are in Asheville, North Carolina. So a quick word to explain what is biomass, since this is our biomass series. Biomass is sometimes called bioenergy, wood pellets, woody biomass, and more. It's basically when you use living materials such as trees and burn them as an energy source. On an industrial scale, biomass companies cut down our standing natural forests, transport the logs to plants where they are converted into wood pellets, and then they are shipped overseas to places like Europe or Asia and burned in energy plants as an alternative to coal. Some claim that this is a clean, renewable energy source because trees grow back, but biomass is not clean or green, and it actually releases more carbon into the atmosphere than coal does. Biomass plants are routinely located in the US South, specifically in under-resourced, predominantly Black and Indigenous communities. In fact, biomass plants are twice as likely to be located in an environmental justice community. Biomass plants run 24 hours a day and 7 days a week. Local residents never get a break from the constant noise, dust, heavy truck traffic, and pollution. People living next to pellet plants often have lower life expectancy and poor health. And so for all those reasons and more, biomass is an environmental justice issue. But I don't want to focus too much on the science. I want to get to the heart of the issue, and that's the people impacted by this industry. And so with that said, I'm going to hand it over to our Director of Organizing and Partnership Engagement, Erniko Brown. Erniko is also the Soil and Water Commissioner of Greenwood, South Carolina. She is the Environmental and Climate Justice Chair for the South Carolina NAACP State Conference, and she is the Executive Director and founder of the nonprofit OURS, which stands for Organized Uplifting Resources and Strategies. Erniko, please take it away.
Thank you, Adele. Before we get started, one thing that has been heavy on my heart, the shooting in Tulsa, Oklahoma, I found out about this morning. The shooting out in Texas, and the shooting prior to that, I forget where it was, but where the 10 people died in the community. I just want to take a moment to pause and remember all of those amazing people who had an opportunity to make a mark on the world, and their lives were taken too soon. So just want to pay homage to those individuals and ask that y'all just take a moment to think of them and their families in their time of need. As we stand here or sit here today, and also recognize the Tulsa, Oklahoma massacre that was 101, the anniversary of that, and also recognizing that this month is Juneteenth, 1619, if you don't understand. So we got a lot going on. A lot of people are impacted. A lot of things are going on. But we want to take this opportunity to ground and to connect around these issues because they are somehow related to environmental racism and climate justice. So just want to let you know, guys, know that it's not only around biomass, mass shootings, all of these things are connected somehow. So we definitely want to take time and observe those individuals and just reach out to those families via our heart, mind, soul, and spirit, because it could have been any of us. So just wanted to put that out there. Happy June, but definitely wanted to put that out there and talk about that. So next thing, thank you all for joining us today. This is, it has been an amazing journey for us. I'm so excited. We have so many wonderful people and it keeps getting better and better each and every week. I'm super excited because again, we got Miss Kathy Eglin with us. We have Reverend Michael Malcolm, who is on the ones and twos, who does justice in all forms. And we have Mr. Robert Gudea with us, coming to you from South Carolina. And shout out to South Carolina, the home state, because there's a lot of us here today. I appreciate y'all showing up. And so the first thing that's going to happen, Mr. Robert is going to talk with us about what's going on. We've been moving across the Southeast. We started in Mississippi, then we came over to Georgia. We skipped over Alabama, but we have Reverend Michael Malcolm with us this evening, and we're going to have this conversation. We're moving across these states that we serve and the people that we serve and the communities that we serve. So we want to continue these conversations. And tonight we're talking about environmental racism and climate justice. And we'll start it off with Mr. Robert Gudea and a presentation.
Okay, thank you so much, Ernika. And thank you for taking the moment to help us recognize the mass shootings that have happened. I really appreciate that. So I asked the question as people were coming in, what is the most easternmost state in the United States? Alaska is the correct answer. It is so big that it actually crosses the Western Hemisphere and goes to the Eastern Hemisphere. And depending on how you consider the border, you're either 55 miles from the border of Russia, but in the Bering Sea, the divide between Siberia and Alaska, the island chains that it was divided, is 2.2 miles. If it's not abundantly clear, I am a geography PhD student, and I do geography at the University of South Carolina, and I specialize in environmental racism, climate justice, and renewable energy. And I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. I decided rather than making you guys sit through one of my lectures, which I don't think anybody wants to do that, I'm instead going to talk about, it's called the CPAC is who I'm involved with, and they work on environmental justice. Is my screen showing? I don't know where it's showing at.
Yes, I can see your screen, Robert.
Okay, I have my dual screen set up, so I think it's throwing it off. But basically, I'm just going to skip forward and then backtrack. But CPAC stands for the Climate Protection Action Committee, and it was created in 2006 by the then mayor. And the goal is to help the city reduce its greenhouse gas emissions. It's a voluntary group. And I recognize that not every city has this, or not every county has something like this. But given that when it comes to environmental justice, so few, how do I put this? Basically, the federal government has yet to take any serious action on environmental justice. The office in the EPA of environmental justice has been around for 22 years, and it has yet to find a single case of discrimination. Under Title VI of the Civil Rights Act, I think there's been over 250 lawsuits, and not a single one has ever been upheld by the court of environmental racism or disproportionate harm to communities of color. Same at the state level, it varies dramatically. And so where I'm seeing some success is at this local level. And one place where that could be is if the city or the county has a citizens board where you can volunteer and are able to help steer some of these policy decisions that the city are doing or at the county level. So this is where I've been involved with for about a year now. Okay, so I'm going to backtrack a little bit. And it's always helpful to have an idea of when we talk about environmental racism, there's two key definitions that I usually use with my students. And the first one is by Reverend Benjamin Chavez Jr. He was working with the United Church Christ Commission, who did one of the first major studies about landfills, and they were located in communities of color. And then the second one is Dr. Robert Bullard. If you're not familiar with him, he is one of the most important people in the environmental justice movement, and he really laid the intellectual foundations for the movement. But for this, I just want to highlight Dr. Bullard's definition, and it's specifically policies, practices, or directives that create differentiated impacts. And it doesn't have to be intended, and that's really important to understand, is that when we're responding to climate change, we might have good intentions, but if we don't recognize the broader historical context, the broader geographical context of what we're doing, we could be inadvertently perpetuating harms, or in some cases, as you'll frequently see with biofuels, that doesn't even come into the conversation at all. And so this environmental justice focus is often missing. One of the challenges that I've had in talking with people about environmental justice is a lot of times people don't understand what environmental justice is, or they have never heard of it. I work with a lot of city people in the Columbia, South Carolina, and many people have never heard of environmental justice at all. And environmental justice has been around for decades. When people do talk to me about justice, they usually understand things as hate groups. So they understand environmental racism as the KKK or the hate groups. Maybe they'll know Flint, Michigan, or sometimes they'll say Hurricane Katrina. And what I usually tell people is that I like to use this as my an iceberg metaphor. The stuff that people understand to be racism is usually something that's intentional, something that's explicit, something that's highly visible. But that's a really, really small portion of what we're talking about. And just like an iceberg, 95% of the iceberg's mass is below the surface, and you do not see it. And so icebergs are really dangerous because you don't see it. And it's the same when we're talking about environmental racism. The stuff that people see is very, very small. It's a small, small portion. And what makes environmental racism particularly difficult to recognize and then respond to for many people in positions of power is that it's not spectacular. It's not an explosion. It's not, even in Flint, Michigan, it took more than a year of organizing before the state took action. This isn't like an explosion. This isn't a pipeline bursting. When we're talking about environmental racism, we have to understand that it's mundane. It's in the background. It's normal. Oh, it's normal to have green parks and clean air. You don't take for granted that you can go a couple blocks over, cross the highway, and it's completely different. That reality is not the same. And sometimes it can really be just across the street. So it makes it really difficult for a lot of policy people to understand. And like the iceberg, environmental racism is largely unseen by the general public, particularly the people who have the power and the privilege to act. So that's why I like to use that iceberg metaphor. But if you don't recognize that environmental racism, this becomes a problem because as you respond to climate change, you could be contributing to what's called climate gentrification, in where the climate change policies that you're implementing disproportionately benefit some people, but at the expense of others, because these communities have been historically excluded, or because in responding to climate change, you're increasing property values And again, certain communities have been disproportionately harmed or prevented from benefiting from rising property values. And that has a cascading effect. With that in mind, that's what I'm working with CPAC. It is a struggle. Even with people who have good intentions, it is a struggle to constantly have to push to get people to understand that the intentions you do, for good intentions, you can't ignore the environmental racism and environmental justice. It has to be front and center every time. So here's what that would look like on one of these projects that I'm working with. The City of Columbia signed up for what's called Ready for 100. It's a Sierra Club pledge. Let's see, please select, oh, okay. And the goal is for the city to move to 100% green energy by 2036. That was the goal, ambitious goal, but technically very doable for the city of Columbia, South Carolina. Very doable. To give it a perspective, that's about 75 megawatts of additional energy. And to put that into perspective, that's about 35 wind turbines, 30,000 solar panels. And it costs about $60 to $75 million for the city of Columbia to build this, to make this transition. Very doable for the city of Columbia, South Carolina. Very doable. The problem we ran into is that this isn't a financial burden. Yes, it is a challenge, but over the 15 years, it's actually net positive, which results in savings for the city. This isn't a technical issue. This is purely a political understanding. And so when CPAC got together with us, we had to have conversations about what is our political goals and what are our ideological goals. And that's where this kind of transition is really what it boils down to. And I just want to reiterate that again, responding to environmental racism is not a technical issue. It's not a financial issue per se. It is a political will issue. And that's where you've got to make the work. So I'm going to share with you an example of why I got involved with this particular transition. This is the wastewater treatment plant at Columbia, South Carolina. And the city council and the mayor decided to install an anaerobic digester. And the anaerobic digester takes the waste that is produced from your wastewater treatment plant, and a byproduct of it is biogas. And the goal of the city was to convert this biogas into injecting it into pipelines on the coast of South Carolina. So what they would do is start shipping it out, 2 hours away to the beach. They've talked about converting all of the vehicles, about 450 vehicles, to biodiesel, and then having people come and fuel their vehicles there. But right now they're just flaring this gas. What you see there are gas flares, and these flares don't have any fence. There's no security around them. I'm about 10 feet away from these flares, and I had to leave because I was starting to get dizzy and lightheaded. These flares release a lot of toxic chemicals, and they also release carbon dioxide, methane, nitrous oxide into the atmosphere, and they go 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. I've tried to raise concerns about the employees that live next to this. There's a school half a mile away from these. And then 3 miles, 2.5 to 3 miles is an environmental justice community of Arthurtown, South Carolina. What's important here is that the city pushed this through as a climate project, reducing climate emissions, because they said, well, we don't have to use more gas to power the anaerobic digesters. We could just use the gas that we're burning and use this biodiesel. What you find is that when you do the calculations, biofuels is not inherently carbon neutral in any way. It's far more polluting than people are willing to acknowledge. Per kilowatt hour, it produces more greenhouse gas emissions than coal. And in addition to that, it creates another environmental justice consideration. In this particular instance, the community was not made aware of the biodigester and that it was in there. It was just installed without the community being aware of it. The gas flaring, again, it causes serious harm, not only to the employees, but the people that are with it. It's going to stay in the atmosphere. It's going to be spread several miles away. It's going to pollute the soil around it. So you're having those kind of impacts. And the city spent, I think, $15–20 million on this. And they're going to be upgrading it again. But in the process of doing this massive renovation, they didn't address flooding at this wastewater treatment plant. So you can imagine during high periods of rain, this water that hasn't been treated is going to flood and it's going to go somewhere and it's going to go out into the community. And so that's water that's not treated. That's basically raw sewage going out. And throughout the United States, you can see places where people are literally, within 50 yards of a wastewater treatment plant. And so when it floods, you've got people's property inundated with several feet of raw sewage. And so you're seeing a lot of communities starting to look at these biogas digesters as an option to reduce climate change impacts, which is scientifically dubious, but they're also not addressing the existing inequalities to begin with. So this is what got me really working with CPAC. So I got started working with CPAC and I'm working on how to transition the city to 100% renewable. And we ran into some real challenges. And the first thing that we did was identify what are the values. And what we found is that the values of the community differed from the values of the city. And what you'll notice here is that the values of the community was saying, we want clean energy, we want renewable energy, but we also need you to address the existing environmental inequalities. And we also need to make sure that this is transparent and we know what's happening. And that's not something that a lot of cities do. A lot of government agencies are very transparent. One of the things that I'm working on to try to establish more is, are companies requiring governments to sign non-disclosure agreements preventing public disclosures? If that's the case, that makes it even harder for the community to find out what is happening. So that's one of the projects that I'm working on as well. The city's goals from their perspective was to build solar farm, definitely doable. And one of the big things that they wanted was the utility in Columbia, South Carolina is Dominion. And Dominion is vertically integrated and has a complete monopoly over everything that's done. To give an example, 30 years ago, the city negotiated the franchise agreement with Dominion Energy, and they have written into that contract that even if community solar becomes legal at the state level, the city of Columbia is prohibited by Dominion Energy to offer community solar. So even if we are successful at the state level to get policies to permit it, the contract prevents the city from making solar energy, clean, renewable energy accessible to renters, to the public. And it's just astounding. And they've actually made it harder for people to install solar on their own property by charging a really high fee. In some places, it's like $150 a month to connect your solar panels. And looks like David said that's the same in Virginia as well. That's not surprising when you look at across the state. That's pretty normal. One thing that I talked to some of the city people, I said, before coming here, I used to live in Wisconsin. Now, Wisconsin is not known for its sunny days. It's not. But when I did some work for the Public Service Commission, regulate the utilities, and we found that it is cheaper to install solar plus storage than continue operating peaking power plants to handle demand. by several cents per kilowatt hour. And the commissioner now is in charge. He was nominated by a Democratic governor, and Wisconsin is just unbelievably astounding in what they're doing with community solar at the utility level, with schools. And you have to think, if a state like Wisconsin, which has like snow 9 months out of the year, I mean, Wisconsin was cold. It was not my favorite state to be in for 4 years. If they are making solar financially attractive and rapidly expanding it, it seems strange to me that South Carolina, with our climate, can't do that, and really across the entire South. So again, this is an example of its political will. And the most important outcome here that I want to highlight is the city did not want to ruin that relationship with the utility. The city is currently renegotiating its franchise agreement with Dominion, and that's really where, for people looking to make an impact on justice at the local level with utilities, that's where you're going to be able to do it. It's with that franchise agreement. So find out when that next agreement is happening, get in contact with your city managers, with city council, and get a voice in there. We gave the city, I think, 30, maybe 40 recommendations on things they could do to address justice, environmental racism and environmental justice. We don't know what that process will be because we're kept out of it. But really the big victory for us would be if Dominion's willing to build the solar, work with us, and allow us to have community solar. Because it's just astounding that we can't do it. So then the next step was defining these energies. Now, these are definitions that I came about. You're welcome to use these definitions if you want to, but this was contentious. And the real advantage I have here is that I have a science background. And so I was really able to inject the science and clearly define what is clean and alternative. And I want to highlight here that biomass, while it's definitely an alternative form of energy, it is not clean and it's not renewable. And that was an intentional scientific-based analysis. If you cut down the trees and forests, it takes like 99 years for it to grow back. And even then you're causing serious ecological harms that are not captured in greenhouse gas emissions, which might include flood, heat control, wildlife preservation, and so forth. So you're welcome to use these definitions, and I'm happy to share them, but these are specific to Columbia, South Carolina. And then next step was we were also laid out our specific requirements for environmental justice. And we came up with 3 areas that we wanted to work. Under energy, one of the things that I want to highlight here is we use the term non-combustion based energy. And what that means is that biomass and biofuels are combustion based. And whenever you burn something, you produce toxic waste and greenhouse gas emissions. If you're using combustion based, you can make the argument that nuclear doesn't fit that definition anymore. So that met the requirements for our community as well. Whether or not the city will permit that from a legal perspective, it's unclear, but that's where we put that in. We also said that whatever solar projects the city wants to do, it has to have multi-use for it. So here we're trying to address urban gardens and address food justice issues and combining it with solar. We're looking at combining solar with education to make it more accessible. And what we really want is the solar farms not to be in a single location in a rural area, but to be broken up into 4 or 5 pieces across the city, so more people can benefit from it. As part of this, where we're centering environmental justice, we've are stipulating that the city must prioritize brownfields, vacant lots, and blighted areas. So these are areas that have been neglected and disinvested from, and we're saying these areas are not safe for people to build on. Don't put apartments here. It's toxic land. But instead, you could put solar farms because, these aren't people. You're not farming this land. So you can use solar to address these blighted and brown fields. And so that does something with that land that could be really beneficial. We're really pushing for the city to adopt telework. One of the biggest emission sources for the city is commuting. It's like 9%. I'd have to get the exact number, but like 9% of the city's emissions can be connected to telework or for people commuting to work. And a telework policy can address both emissions as well as making it more affordable for people who need daycare help. And so what we're really trying to do is change the culture in the city and have people understand that these are interconnected. They're not either or, but you can make it as part of a broader shift in emissions and addressing these other environmental justice issues. The big one that we're really pushing for is the 90-day multi-stakeholder comment period. Right now, that's not being done. It should be. It's required by law, but it's not being done. So that's a really big one. So you can look through these, and I'm happy to share these at the end. So where we're at now is we're hoping that by July, mid-July, the city will finish its legal review. Once that city has gone through the legal review, that goes to city council for readings and for votes. And CPAC's job through all of this, particularly my job, will be to make sure that the city doesn't undo the environmental justice focus, and to really keep pushing how you can accomplish both of these goals simultaneously. It goes in front of the city council, and if city council passes this, hopefully by the end of the summer, we'll be able to have this resolution done and be in the place to have a legally binding document that shifts the city to 100% renewable energy. There'll be a lot more to do afterwards, but this is the first major, this is a big shift, and it's a big cultural shift, and it'll be a big project across the South. And with that, that's my time.
Thank you so much, Robert, for giving us information on South Carolina. Definitely appreciate it, and look forward to hearing and seeing more about the home team. I'm super excited, South Carolina. But we want to step back a couple of states and talk with Miss Kathy, and would love for her to speak from experience about environmental racism and climate justice in the big state of Mississippi.
Hi, thank you. And thank you so much, Robert. Great background, great definitions. Only thing I would add to that is not just a lack of political will, it's definitely a lack of moral will. And I think that's very important. For some reason, I am having problems with my connection. So I hope I can get through this, because even though it's showing that my iPad is charging, apparently it's not. So if I cut, I apologize. I plugged it into another, and hopefully that will work. So first, let me say, and anytime I talk about this, I don't want people to think, oh, this is just the old days and that's not happening anymore. But I did grow up in the segregated Deep South. And many of us had no idea that we were being disproportionately exposed to air and water pollution. Our struggle was about basic dignity and desegregating public accommodations. And I say this not to blame and shame, but just because it's just a fact. The environmental rights movement was as insular and segregated as the Deep South. The civil rights movement, on the other hand, welcome everybody. It was a very inclusive movement. So we actually, just had no way of knowing. We didn't have anyone to come to say that, the water that you're drinking may be more contaminated than the water of your white counterpart. So the air that you're breathing may not be as clean as the air as your white counterparts. And I grew up across town from a chemical plant called Hercules. And we had no idea that Hercules presented all of these environmental hazards. That's the only thing everybody knew. If you had a parent that worked at Hercules, you had a great working middle class income. It was not, and I used to get, and even though I lived across town on a windy day, the breeze, the smell from that plant would be sickening, and I would have headaches and nosebleeds. And it never even occurred to me until much later, after I moved from Hattiesburg and moved to Gulfport, that I no longer had the headaches and the nosebleed, and that I was able to associate it with that plant. The good news is that the city came together, Black and whites, and I make this point to say this is what we need to continue to do. And Anika, even in your opening remarks, we've got to have a total approach when it comes to justice, not just, it can't just be narrowly focused. We've got to look at the whole picture as it relates to justice. And everyone came together, and Hercules is no longer operating. It is a Superfund site. So the community came together, and that's what it's going to take. And Robert, you mentioned about how even in this transitioning, that's how we're in this wood pellets biomass mess. And I've been very resentful, to be honest, because I have been bringing this up and talking about it for years, and nobody listened for the first 2 years, 2 or 3 years. And it's very frustrating because, I've even heard, well, we have to do something. Well, we got to transit. Well, we got to get to 1.5. And I just finally started saying, for those of you who don't care about people and you only care about policy, this is not getting us to 1.5. And we're hurting people in the process. And again, not to blame or shame, but, there was just no focus there. And I felt like that we should all come together. I even made a post once on Twitter, and someone say, oh, blame the climate activists for everything. And I said, look, I am a climate activist. I'm also a civil and human rights activist. I'm not blaming. I am just issuing a challenge that we need to come together and speak out. Okay, so let me say quickly, I didn't have to watch what was happening. And you mentioned and it's so true that what you were talking about, people can associate environmental racism with what they saw in Katrina. Well, I didn't have to watch it on television. I lived it. Most people only know about Katrina and what they saw on television that was happening in New Orleans. Many people have tell me to this day that they didn't know that Gulfport, Mississippi, actually, the Mississippi Gulf Coast actually suffered the brunt of the Katrina damage. New Orleans suffered the damage from the breach of the levees. And so I actually lived and I saw this even when it came to the recovery efforts in these agencies, FEMA and American Red Cross, and not having distribution centers equitable, not going into Black neighborhoods to serve meals and luncheon. And this is where we had to come together and raise our voices to be heard. I mean, witnessing that injustice, I can clearly remember that day during Hurricane Katrina, that it came to my mind that I felt like that I was back in the 60s, witnessing that same Jim Crow segregation during Hurricane Katrina. And I'm telling you, it was not a good feeling when we needed our government and when we needed people most, they were not there. It was a gigantic failure. So not long after Hurricane Katrina, and I will say, always let people know that a lot of this is personal to me because I lost 2 of my dearest friends to drowning death during Hurricane Katrina when the waters came rapidly rushing into their homes, and even climbing into their attic was not enough to save them. So I know the feeling all too well of the pain and suffering. I had insurance. I was able to replace my home. I can't replace my friends. 5 years after Hurricane Katrina, I walked out my front door, and within 4 blocks of my home, I was looking at the sludge from the BP oil spill. Again, poor people were sacrificed. Poor, desperate people in need of jobs were sacrificed in that cleanup effort. They are suffering to this day. Many of them have death. Many of their families were exposed because people didn't know that they were coming home, bringing this contamination home to their families. And right after the BP oil spill, the NAACP published a cold-blooded report. Lo and behold, on that report, 4 miles from my house, out my back door, was a failing coal plant Jack Watson. Now, many of you have heard me say about, you've heard this term, don't make a Black woman take her earrings off. Man, I took my earrings off. Enough was enough. And so it was time. And we went to work to get that plant closed. And, you know, against all odds, against people telling us it would never happen, we would never do it. Don't ever let anybody tell you that, because we did not give up. We were determined. And I want you to know that this day, 7 years ago, that plant no longer burns coal as of the last 7 years, despite how everybody told us it would never close, and that we were going up against a powerful industry. They didn't know they were going up against some powerful Black women, okay? And then the energy company tried to do race and class baiting, telling us they hoped that we weren't listening to that Sierra Club because they didn't care anything about poor people or jobs. They only cared about, they were just a bunch of rich white people, which infuriated me, because I let them know that I knew what the CEO at the Southern Company made, and I knew what the executive director of the Sierra Club made, and we would decide which rich white man we wanted to listen to. Okay. Okay. So now, after the battle with the failing coal plant, Mississippi, I'm in the ratepayer district. It's like they're just picking on me. I live in the ratepayer district of the infamous failed carbon capture sequestration plant, the Kemper County plant. So we opposed that plant from the beginning. It was experimental again. This plant was put in a overwhelmingly minority area that has a very high percentage of poverty. So, which is what they do with all experiments. We have got to stop allowing this to happen. It is the same thing that is happening with the wood pellets, the biomass plant. It needs to stop. I live in Mississippi, home to the largest wood pellets manufacturing plant in the world. I live in Mississippi, home to the worst biomass manufacturing plant, the one that has the largest fine to date. And I am telling you, enough is enough. This is not my battle. People will tell me my community is lucky to have me. This is not my fight. It is our fight. And I ask you to join in it. Thank you.
Listen, you're talking good. You're talking good. I'm about ready to shout. But, you know, we're going to keep it moving. We're going to keep it hot, and we're going to give it to Reverend Malcolm from Alabama.
I mean, first and foremost, thank you, Ernico, for this invitation. Thank you, Dogwood. Let me apologize to you all. I got stuck out in traffic, and so I had to pull over. Now that I've said that, let me fuss a little bit, because, Nico, I don't know how in the world you put me in the lineup and you put me going behind Mama Kathy. How in the world am I supposed to follow behind Mama Kathy? That sister can preach the paint off the walls. Do you hear me? And you asked me to come up and go behind that. But I'm going to try my best. I was tasked with speaking about what I've seen in the South as I've traveled through the South, looking at environmental justice, environmental racism. It was during a meeting that we were having in Gloucester, Mississippi, and I believe I heard one of the residents, and forgive me, I'm trying to remember her name. I believe it was Miss Carmela. Yes. Miss Carmela. Mm-hmm. I heard Miss Carmela say this. She said, "I can't breathe." This arrested my attention, and because this is not something that I've seen in the South but I've heard this throughout the annals of time when it's come down to our struggle. I can't breathe. We heard it. We heard it reverberate through the echoes of our television screens and our radios when we witnessed Eric Gardner saying that I can't breathe. But what we don't know is we saw Eric Gardner being choked out by this policeman, but he was already suffering from asthma because of polluting facilities that he was surrounding his community. We heard the same thing and we witnessed the same thing when Alton Sterling said that he couldn't breathe in the state that I'm sitting in right now, Louisiana, as police choked him out, understanding that he had breathing problems as well because of the industry pollution that surrounded his community. We even heard it as of recent when we heard George Floyd saying, I can't breathe. And when we heard that, we also understood that George Floyd was having breathing problems prior to that because of the polluting industries that he suffered from in both Texas and Minnesota. As I've gone throughout the South, I've heard my people and my communities saying, I can't breathe because some polluting facility surrounds their community and robs them of air. I've heard my people saying, I can't breathe because of constant policing and constant surveillance and constant harassment. We've heard this, we've seen this, we've heard, I can't breathe. And then I asked, what are we doing about it? Well, that's the other thing that I've seen in the South that I need to let you all know about and say we need to do more of. I've seen my people look in the face of this demise and show resiliency to say that we will not go down this way. And they have started to fight for a better tomorrow, not just a better tomorrow, for a better today. We've seen communities raise up in Gloucester, Mississippi. We've seen communities raise up in Wiggins, Mississippi. We've seen communities raise up in Epps, Alabama. We've seen communities raise up in Georgia and in North Carolina and in South Carolina to fight against these injustices that happen in their communities, to stop this constant sentence of, I can't breathe. And now, as Mama Kathy has told you all earlier, and I even ask you and challenge you all today and right now, help us to end that sentence. So we no longer speak those words, I can't breathe. When we speak those words are of distant memory. I can't breathe because we fought for something to be a whole lot better. I can't breathe needs to be changed because we have come together collectively to fight against those who keep us from breathing, and we changed that sentence from I can't breathe to I can breathe. I can breathe because there are those that are out here fighting for me that look like me. I can breathe because we not only have those grassroots organizations, but we've got those big greens on the way that's helping us as well. I can breathe because we've turned that resilience that we've had around into courage, and we've said we not only gonna face it internally and overcome it internally, but we gonna fight like hell to make sure it don't happen again externally as well. Baby, I can't breathe. Don't never need to come out of our mouths anymore because we are fighting to say, I can breathe. I can breathe. And that's all I wanted to tell you. That's the thing that I saw as I traveled through the South. I heard the words, I can't breathe, but I saw some folks fighting to say, I can breathe. And I need to let you all know I'm fighting with those people. And I challenge you, just as Mama Kathy has challenged you before, to say the same thing, I can breathe, and to help us to fight to say, I can breathe in the South. Thank you for my time. I hope I didn't waste my 5 minutes, Nico, and bless you real good.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Just want everybody to know that this is not our fight right here, the 5 of us, this panel, but it's all of our fight. The South is a sacrifice zone, and we are being sacrificed each and every day. And so just like Reverend Malcolm said, let's change that narrative from I can't breathe to I can breathe. Let's all get out into this fight. Let's all do what we can on behalf of our communities. Let's all be at those zoning meetings. Let's all stand up and do that vote. Let's all stand in these streets and do what we need to do. Let's all do what we can do for each and every last one of us, because we are all in this together. It's not separate from Alabama to Mississippi. It's not separate from South Carolina down to Florida. It's not separate from Texas to over here in North Carolina. We all are in this thing together, and we got to make a move. We got to make a mark. We got to stand up, and we got to do this thing, because baby, we in it, and we in it to win it. When we stand up, we stand out. When we show up, baby, believe we show out. We getting ready to show out down here in Louisiana, but while we showing out in Louisiana, baby, you best believe we are on the mark for each and every last state across the South, because we are the South. And guess what, baby? The South got something to say. So we gonna stand up. We gonna do everything that we can do, as much as we can, for each and every last person on this call. And we just invite all of you into this fight, because it's not our fight, but it's all of our fight, because we're all in the South and we're all impacted one way or another. So we invite all of you to continue to come on these calls each and every week, talk with the people who are impacted, who are standing up, who are standing out, and who are standing before these people on our behalf. I just want to say thank you all for being here this evening. Adele, we're going to give it to you before we start preaching and pass the plate, okay?
Please do. Let's pass the plate. Wow, thank you so much. I realize that we are at time, so I'm gonna try to at least answer a couple questions. And I see that Robert has been answering a lot of questions privately, so I want to thank him for that, and reaching out to folks. So I do want to ask this question that has come up. So if you could write a policy to address environmental racism and that will bring us climate justice, what do you think should be included in that policy?
Is that for anybody, or?
That's for anybody who would like to answer.
I would definitely write a policy where these companies that are polluting, I would definitely write a policy that they are fined each and every time. And it's a 1, 2, 3, you out.
I would put criminalization at the top, put them in jail for doing this. You know, you are contributing to people's deaths. And so you be jailed for it. Should be a criminal offense.
There is a policy that is already in existence, but of course, as always, when it comes down to policies that will benefit communities that suffer the most, it's slow moving. But there's a policy that that some states have already implemented that actually does community impact studies on new building structures that are coming in and new industry that comes into community. I'd like to see that also grandfather in existing, and all industry that exists in community goes through a community impact assessment, and we look at how we help these communities, and these communities can benefit first and foremost. And then, in addition to that particular policy, I'd also add to that the criminalization. When we do see polluting facilities, we actually start penalizing them for real, and not the BS that we tend to do.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with holding people criminally accountable. I would add to that, one of the difference in the United States is that the activity is allowed to exist regardless of the impact. So the cities and counties don't legally have the right, in most cases, say, this activity cannot exist here. So they don't have that ability vis-a-vis zoning. That's the extent of what they can do it. And zoning laws actually has a really robust history in racist processes about zoning. And what I would like to see changed is in the European Union, before something can take place or goes on the market or something sets up shop somewhere, they have to prove that they are not harming the community, that their product is safe, or they've taken steps to make sure that they are keeping the community safe. And that does not exist here.
All right. So what would you say? Thank you. So it seems like Reverend Malcolm is going to jump. So thank you so much, Reverend Malcolm, for joining us tonight. And again, I appreciate everybody who can hang out with us for a couple more minutes, just so we can get some of these questions answered. So if you could speak directly to the youth who are experiencing this in their communities, the youth who feel hopeless in this moment, in this time, there's so much stuff going on. If you could speak to the youth about environmental justice and climate justice, what would you like to say to them?
I would like to say we need you. Just like Miss Kathy is here doing the work, I'm learning from amazing people like her. And you know, she's in this fight, we have to keep it going. So the sooner you get in the fight, the more you can learn, the better you're able to stand. We need you. It's not just our fight here right now in this moment, but this is a fight for the future as well. So not just our children, but our children's children, and our children's children's children. So we need you.
I would say be unapologetically loud. And one of the things that drives me crazy is, so I'm 31 now, and every time I hear people say it's just the way things are, or my mom is like 76 now, and she says, oh, a lot of progress has happened in that time, and it happens incrementally. And my response is always, that's nice, Mom, but how many people have died in that process of that incremental change? And how many more people will die in that process while we wait for something to happen? And so when I talk with my students or other people who ask me to come in, I say, be loud. It's part of this white supremacist structure that you can't go protest in front of the Supreme Court justice's house. It's an inconvenience for them, but for the people that live in these communities, it's life and death. And one of the things that people don't understand is these harms don't stay with your community. If you look at a lot of these harms, they pass down through the genetics of people, and so they pass on through generations, particularly with chemicals and pesticides. So even today, where they had nuclear testing in the Marshall Islands, and they stopped testing, I think in the 60s, they officially banned it. I don't remember the exact year, but even to this day, they still have an enormously disproportionate rate of children dying with extreme deformities, their skulls turn into jellies, kids dying after minutes of breathing because of pollution and nuclear testing that was done on a poor community that was disposable more than 50 years ago. So the impacts that these companies are doing aren't being felt by you, just you today. You're talking about what's going to affect your grandkids and their kids. And this stuff is going to stay in your environment. They don't go away after 10 years or 20 years. You're talking about thousands of years with some of this stuff. So if you're not going to if you're not going to be loud and get in these face of people who don't live in these communities and don't justify it, they're committing harms, not just against you, but your subsequent generation. And it's a lot of times it's down at your genetic level. And people don't understand that. This is your kids will be affected by this. Everybody in your genetic line.
Miss Kathy, did you want to answer?
Just quickly, I'm gonna say probably the most profound thing I've ever done was to be an educator, and an early childhood educator. And I can only say that I can tell you, I started with my kindergarten students and always say, you have an obligation to leave this world better than you found it. And that sounds kind of Pollyannish, but it's true. And that's kind of what I live by. It's very important. They're going to inherit a lot of things that others created. And the time is now to start acting in your own best interest.
Whew. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. And then this is our last question, and I apologize to everyone who didn't get to your questions. We'll do our best to answer those questions after this meeting. We'll send communications out. So this is the last question for the night. This work is very heavy and can weigh very heavily on you individually. So my question to you is, where do you find hope in this work?
Maybe Kathy can take this one since she's been in this. I can't even imagine how she's still here.
Again, it's a moral obligation, and even though I grew up and I knew people in the civil rights movement, these martyrs, and I know I stand on their shoulders. I know there are so many people who died for us and who died for our rights. I'm sorry, but I do feel like we owe it to them to continue this until we have achieved full and complete victory.
For me, it's a lonely road. It's a painful road. I can tell you with my work in CPAC, I get a lot of racist stuff all of the time. At the University of South Carolina, even professors haven't met me. I can't tell you the amount of racist stuff I get over emails and in person. When I was at the Government Accountability Office, I sued them for trying to get relief for how much racist stuff that I got in this kind of stuff. It's just everywhere. And what I can say for me is I recognize that I'm in a very unique position of privilege. I grew up in the Romanian orphanage system under Ceausescu, and I got out when I was 7. I was adopted and I came to the US and I won the jackpot. I'm ethnically Romani, and that just doesn't happen for people like me. And like Kathy said, you think about the people who've suffered and died, and you gotta do what you can to prevent it in the future. My start with environmental justice was when I was reading about Romani children in villages being forced off their land and put on a nuclear waste dump, intentionally moved there by the government. They all died of horrific cancers within 6 months. We were enslaved for 800 years in Europe, and discrimination is still legal. And so what I have to remember is, as taxing as this work is here, I'm in a position to do something about it, and I can be educated, which wasn't allowed for me back in Romania. And I'm going to keep fighting because, as Kathy said, we're doing this to remember the people who've lost their lives, and we're doing this to protect the people coming ahead of us.
Nico, you want to round us out?
What gives me hope is being able to come here every Thursday night and see all of these faces, to see new people, to see a different perspective, but we're all talking about the same thing. That gives me hope because it shows that we're in this together. And as you can see tonight, we had Alabama, Mississippi. I'm gonna call Louisiana because I'm in Louisiana right now. South Carolina. So across the Southeast, we've showed up to have a conversation with each other about what's going on, to share knowledge and to exchange love amongst us. So that gives me hope each and every time. And with that, I definitely want to say, join us next Thursday, June 9th. We will have the amazing Brandy Hamilton with us talking about organizing the rise. So how do we get into We talked about environmental racism and climate justice tonight, but next week, join us because we're going to talk about how to organize and people speaking from experience of organizing events in communities to bring about change and giving hope to those individuals in the community. So again, join us next week. This will be our Justice in June forum, and we look forward to seeing each and every last one of you. And next week, I challenge y'all to bring somebody so that they can learn. Reach one, each one, teach one. Let's do it.
Whew. Wow. Thank you so much. This has been so wonderful. I appreciate each and every one of you. I appreciate each and every one of you who showed up tonight. So just thank you so much. Thank you for hanging out an extra 12 minutes with us. I hope you all have a great night. And I hope that tomorrow brings us more justice and more peace. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Adele, do you have to, if you hang up, does